So for this next mock-up that I want you to do, you're going to do an Instagram feed. So the recording from class didn't record with a screen, so I'm doing the tutorial again, and I think I can take the feedback that I got during class and make this one better. So this is your last one, and again, you're not going to post these. You're not going to submit these mock-ups to me. You're going to post them into your process book because you're going to put your image here, your self-portrait. So a nice way to end your self-portrait project, showing you how. And so I'm just going to include a cat in here, and hopefully that'll encourage some people who like cat videos to watch a little bit of this video. Okay, so what I did was I took a couple of screen captures in Photoshop. So just gonna put them inside the images folder. So I have 2 screen captures. What I wanted to do is, because I want to do the 9-pixel grid, so I saw some of you guys had this problem where this the whole image didn't fit in your phone. So I have this one here will be for the upper part of the profile, and this part here will be for the bottom part. I'm going to combine these two in Photoshop. I'm just going to select them both, right click on it, and go open with Photoshop. And I'm not going to worry about working destructively at this stage. I just want to get it done so that they're combined nicely. And you know, part of the idea is with this is to be as real as possible. So just going to arrange these into 2 panels. I'm going to take this one and put it in here. So what I'll do is I'll just grab this one, move it over here, and then I'm going to set the opacity to 50 so I can align the two together. Okay, it looks good. And I'm going to go V0 to set the opacity to 100%. And then what I can just do is delete this part here because the outline's there. I'm just going to leave that like that to make sure. So I just deleted the top part of the image. So just going to invert the image so you can see. I'm going to take this section here and I'm going to delete it. And then Command D to deselect and I to invert. You can see it lines up. And then I'm going to close this one. And I'm going to take my crop tool, and because I'm working with not deleting squares, the rest of this will be here, and it'll just snap in place. I can double click, and I'm going to flatten this. I'm not worried about working non-destructively. So flatten image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this name of this file, so delete this one. Trash. I'm going to take this file name. Paste it here, so a copy of it, where I got it from. Then delete this one as well. File save as. So I want to save this one as my working file, my final working file. Those are PNGs, and I'm going to be working on my W. Make sure you always use a naming convention. It's my last tutorial with you guys. I can't emphasize it enough. Exercise 12. Whatever you can do to make your job easier in the future. And this is a Twitter, so I'm going to call it Mockup Twitter. GD157. Okay, and it saved it as a PNG. That's okay. I'm gonna resave it as a Photoshop file. So Save as. Photoshop. Okay, just gonna keep my files clean. I'm gonna delete this one. Okay, looks like it wasn't consistent there. Let's see, make sure I'm in the right place. Yep, right there. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to actually create my vector mask elements. So I'm just going to do I'm going to draw out these squares as vectors. So again, vectors are going to be much more malleable. So smaller file size, I can scale it, I can do all these things. And this is really just practice. You could use almost any type of mask on here, but for this one I want you to practice using these vector grids because I haven't really got you to do it that much. So like anything else, any other tool in Photoshop, I select this tool. First thing I'm going to do is check up here to make sure that I'm using the right settings for this tool. So this one here, the shape, is usually the default one, and that actually creates a fill layer with a vector mask. So it works as well. But what I want you to do is you're going to work the pure form. You're going to work with a path. You can draw this in Illustrator as well. So some of you try that. This is the way you do it in Photoshop. So I'm just going to trace over this here. And one thing that this allows me to do when I'm doing it in Photoshop allows me to be pixel perfect. Also possible to be pixel perfect in Illustrator, but Illustrator is not a pixel program. So when you're doing pixel kind of stuff, which is this, it can make sense to be in Photoshop. So you can see it snapping nicely to the pixels. I can here check my file size, so 275 by 275, fine. That's resolution like dependent on your phone. Now what I want to do is I actually want to save this path. So you can see this path is not showing up in my layers. What it is, it's a path. So it shows up, it's saved as a temporary work path in the path palette. So this is the place where you'll see it, this work path. You can see if you look closely, I think I have a function here. Oh, I have another zoom, which is a little bit nicer. So this zoom here, you can see here that, and you know, I can see this without actually zooming. I can see that this icon has changed. It's giving me a little preview. I can actually change this so this is bigger, I think. So panel options, I can go with a much larger preview, and that'll, if you're working a lot with paths, it can be convenient to have a nice large preview. You're probably not going to have a long list of paths, but what you want to do is if it's a work path, that's temporary. You want to double click on it and save it. And you can call it a 9 tile grid. That's what it is, 9 tile grid. So now it's saved. Well, the Photoshop file isn't saved, but the path is saved. If I save now, I come back, that these paths are going to be here. So if you're working with mockups a lot it can make sense to create this. You can use it for your whole career. So my class turns out to be not such a waste of time. Okay, what I want, I'm just kidding guys. What I want you to do is I want you to copy this 3 times and then 3 times. So you're only actually going to do it 5 times. So you do the first one, I want you to copy it over here. And the way you're going to do that is with this selection tool, not with the move tool, with the selection tool. If you hover over here, you'll see that there's 2 and they're both A. You have the path selection tool and the direct selection tool. You know what, if you use your keyboard, they're identical. You only have to remember one. And actually, if you use your keyboard, you don't even have to switch to there. You can do it all from this one tool. No switching tools, faster, and you know what, it'll make you just more skilled. So what I want you to do is, with this selected, you're actually going to click on the Command key, and you'll see right away that your cursor changes from this tool that draws a path to the selection tool. If you click on here, hold your Option key down, it changes to a plus. Now you start dragging. Hold your Shift key down to constrain, So practice that a little bit, drawing out that square, right? And then without going over here to the tool palette, just hold down the control key. That switches to the selection tool. Your plus, so my option key is going to make it, it's going to duplicate it. So I'm going to actually deselect, and I'm going to make sure I'm just selecting one. So I'm going to select this one. Again, hold down my option key. I'm going to move my cursor over here because I can see that I don't have that much room to move it. So I want to start over here, and then it's not going to shift the screen over and mess with my, it can get really crazy. So you got to think a little bit ahead, right? A heads up game. Still the sports metaphor, heads up game. Think a little bit before you do things, and you're going to save yourself some grief. Here you can see it didn't quite end up in the right spot. You know what? I can still switch to this selection tool. I'm not going to hold the option key down because I don't want to copy it. I just want to move it over 1 pixel. And here you can see that's pixel perfect. No, it's not. Okay, it looks like I drew, unless they're different sizes. Okay, they're different sizes. Fair enough. So this is just the way my phone renders it. It renders this one a little bit short. It actually doesn't matter from a mask point of view if it's outside of the image area. Who cares for this one? I'm just going to leave it as it is. What I want to do is now I want to select all of these. I may be able to do it from here. Doesn't look like it. Okay. I'm going to take my selection tool again. I am just going to I can actually hold down the A key. But if I have this one selected, I find I don't even think about that anymore. I just switch to the selection tool by holding down the command key. And so I can select this one, hold down my shift key, select the next one, select the third one. I'm going to go back to the selection tool, hold down my option. So that's going to mean it's going to copy, and I'm going to just start dragging down. And there I made a copy of the second one. And I'm just a little bit off, so I can actually nudge it back up. It's not letting me do it. There. If I hold down the command key, I'm switching to the arrow tool, the nudge works. So that's, again, you got to be using the right tool to be able to use a keyboard in a particular way. It makes perfect sense. Here I want to switch again to the selection tool, hold my option key down to copy, and I'm going to move this one more time. Okay, I have perfect grid. You can see here I have this grid. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to deselect. So click anywhere. Oh, it selected the whole thing. Also useful. I can actually select, I can actually click on this pass palette to deselect. I'm going to just make sure that this is saved because that was a little bit of work. I want to make sure all of those grid units are saved. I forgot to check one thing at the bottom just to make sure that I did my screen capture right. Yes, I did. Okay, perfect. Go ahead and deselect. I'm going to go back to the layers palette, and you can see here we still only have one layer. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take my image, I didn't do a self-portrait like you guys. I've been meaning to do one for a while. What I'm going to upload here is another image that I've made, and I'm going to make this my own. So I'm going to take over this whole thing using the type, this as a guide. It'll help me to place all the elements here. So I'm going to go to my okay. Just had to make a note there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to my images, and in here I have a couple of images I could use. So one of the things that I could do is I could use this one, which is another label that I did for mead. I did a batch of mead with my wife. We were beekeepers, we're still beekeepers. So we had this small, very small amount of honey. It actually wasn't from our hive. That was very high quality honey. We decided to upscale it and make a batch of mead. It wasn't that great, but like everything that I do, I do these things to give away as gifts. So it's good enough for homebrew. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drag the Illustrator file in here, because then I have an Illustrator object. So you can drag anything into these mockups. So here we have this thing called a selector, because it's an Adobe Illustrator object. That means that it can have more than one artboard. I'm only going to place one artboard. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK on the one that I wanted. And it took a really long time to make this. So the story behind it is that, so we named our queen bee. We named her each time we actually, in one season, we had to go through 3. So the first one was dead when it arrived. We had bought this batch, this nuke. It's called a nuke. It's like this. It's a small colony of worker bees, and then inside a special case inside was a queen bee with 2 helper bees, and there was this glob of fondant that they lived on their trip from New Zealand. So typically in BC, when you buy a nuke of bees, you are buying them from New Zealand because it's a great place to buy bees. Because they're in the opposite season cycle as us, you get bees that are in really good shape. But the problem was that it came during COVID, so the nuke got delayed in customs, and the queen actually arrived dead. Our second queen that we bought cost us like $100, I think. She was unmotivated, and she affected the whole hive that way. So we actually had to commit regicide, and we had to kill her. So our third queen was called, this is actually a drawing of our second queen. Our third queen, we actually named, I temporarily forget the name, but the name of the last comet that passed by. Neurovir, I think the name was. Anyways. Neowise. So this is one of the queens. So it's a play on words. So thy need be done is like it's a play on this beautiful Christian metaphor. Words. It's a phrase that comes up in Christian, like eschatology, for lack of a better word. It's like just words that are used, and it's very beautiful, and it means thy will be done, right? So it's this idea that giving up your life if it's the will of God, right? So it's this, it's this death metaphor. So these death narratives can be really, we shy away from them, but being able to live with death is something that makes living actually better. You lose this fear of death. Anyways, that's me. I dug a little bit deep on this one, but it's a play on that one. Thy will be done, thy mead be done. So the mead was finally done. We did this. I made this label. Sorry guys, it's a bit of a tangent. So here all I'm gonna do is go back to my path palette, and I'm gonna select this grid that I made. Go back to layers. Have this layer selected, and I'm going to go here to layer, vector mask, current path. Here you can see very quickly, so I can change this anytime. I can double click on it. I can actually edit it in Illustrator. Maybe I want this whole thing smaller. I'm not going to do that now. But here we have this. Oh yeah, so here we have the grid. For the rest of it, try and do this quickly. I know that what this is set in is it is an app. So what they use the Apple typefaces. So it's easy for me. I know what to put here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to San Francisco, so SF. So I know they use, pretty sure it's Pro Bold for the headings, right? So what I want to do is I want to match it. To get it, you want this complete illusion, this thing created. So you do this, set this up one time, use it every time that you do an identity for somebody. You are going to put the logo in there, and you're going to put some image down here that you've made. You've created this image for them. put it in the context of real life can be really beautiful. You can plan out this little Instagram strategy for them, or just put the image in there. So here, I want to match what's underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my type, and I'm going to actually choose something that's easy to see to start with. So because I want to match the two, right? So I'm going to just always choose magenta. So I can set it up perfectly or just use that, it's fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor here, and I'm just going to go down, down. Okay, so it looks like it's approximately the right size. That O looks like it's about right. I'm going to hit enter to apply it. I'm going to double click on here, and I'm actually going to put in their name. So I'm typing it out because what I want to do is I want to match it. And you don't have to be this precise if you don't care, but I think you should, because it's a good way to practice your skills, and a good way to, you can use this for a long time. You might as well be exact. So here we have some options. You can see that the tracking is a little bit tighter, which surprises me. Oh, here, this is because I have tracking already built in here. So I can put in 0, and you can see that it's actually spread out a bit more. So that is a technique to make small digital type more legible. You just add a little more, track it out a little bit more. It's going to be easier to read. So I'm actually going to try 15. So what I'm doing is I'm applying something, and in order to see it, I'm just hitting the tab key, because then it applies it. So it's probably 12. There you go. 12 looks like it's pretty precise. Now, you know what I can do? I can go ahead and put my own in here. So I can say la toga kaput. This is like my gaming my gaming handle. It's a super beautiful story, but we'll do that another day. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a patch behind here. I'm going to keep this here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a layer that's just like white. So there. I just filled it with white. So what we have here is this layer underneath here that just to quickly block that out. That's the way I would do it. If you want to delete it, that's fine too. And you know what? I think this is actually, just going to click on here, and I'm going to make sure this is actually black. Okay, so I need to have, so I'm just using the eyedropper. You can see, again, check the settings at the top. You can access those settings even with this palette open, because everybody does this. They open this palette, and you go here, and this is a use case for it, and you sample the color. That way you know what it is. It's black. Here, this is a nice way to copy colors. So I can copy this and paste it into the palette. Okay, so Ladoga kaput. I want to put my own image in here, but I'm going to leave this for now. Okay, fine, I'll do it. I'm going to put here my little avatar that I use. So I started doing these little avatars so I could tell the difference between my different accounts quickly, because I was using Zoom in a bunch of different accounts. I was using like Blackboard in different accounts, and I just needed to keep them all separate. So I did one for each course, one for each school I was teaching at. And then I had one for, company I was doing some contract work for. So here I have another image placed on top. Or is it an image? A raster is an image, but is it raster or is it a vector? I don't know. Don't remember. It doesn't tell me here. I'd have to double click on it. I don't want to do that right now. So here I just took my selection tool, or the move tool, and then I can just hit a number, and that'll control the opacity. So I just want to do that so I can see the circle. So I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to get my, but instead of the rectangle, I'm going to take the ellipse tool, go up here and check to make sure I'm drawing a path. And I can see here, I'm actually going to draw from the upper left corner, and I can see here that I'm starting 1 pixel down. So for doing stuff on the web, UI work, pixel perfect every time. This is UI work, so user interface design. You'll be, if you take a class in user experience or user interface design, so UI, so like interaction design, similar, you're going to want to always be pixel perfect. So here you can see I want to nudge it over one. I don't actually want to have to drag it. I don't want to go over here and grab this cursor, the selection tool. I could just hit the letter A, but I can also take the command key, nudge it over. When I let go, I have the circle tool again. So that's a way to temporarily grab the selection tool. You can see the bottom's a little bit off. So again, control key, down. Looks like it actually needs to be a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna actually make it one size bigger. So I'm gonna do this numerically. I'm gonna go here, and I want my width and height to go up 1 pixel. So I'm just gonna use the arrow key up 1, enter to apply it. And what happened to my, there it is, it's still there, good. And then go back to the selection tool and go up 1. Okay, here, did this work? Okay, so here I actually made a mistake because I ended up, good, it's still here. I ended up selecting the background, I think. Anyways, let's go back here. Where am I moving here? Okay. Something weird is happening to this file. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save it. I'm going to close it, and I'm going to reopen it. Okay, looks like I lost that setting here. So I think it was bold. Yeah, okay. Here it looks like I still have my, oh good, I still have the path. So I go here to paths, on this path. I'm actually gonna call this profile. I'm gonna save it, go to my layer, go here, and I'm gonna switch to the path tool, command key, go up and over. So that looks pretty good, pretty close. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to go to my layer, vector mask, current path. There we go. I'm just going to go select my move tool and set that to 100%. And then I'm going to go here. And fill it with white. Okay. Fill. White. Okay, yeah, I must have applied something different here. Looks good. Okay, I'm not sure why that was happening. There was some mask there. Okay, I'm gonna go and delete it. There we go. So command delete, what that does is it fills. It's a shortcut for filling. Edit, fill, you can see that's a different shortcut. Interesting. So I'm going to fill it with white. Mode normal, opacity 10%. Done. Command D. If I invert this, you can see how we're creating these patches. Okay, I can leave this here, but you can see how you can do that with all of these pieces. You could replace them all. The one thing I want you to replace is actually this here. I want you to make sure that you put in your own description and your own name. So these names can be different. So I'm going to start. This is probably very close in size. Looks like it's a little bit smaller. So this is called nudge. Called nudge. Noodles, right. Noodles. Noodles. Looks like a little bit smaller. So again, easiest way is to go with a high contrast color and make it 50%. And then, so we got the move tool, just going to move it down so the baseline aligns. And then I'm going to actually change the type size. So I just switch to the type tool. This brings up this palette here. It's selected, allows me to change this. I'm just going to go down in size. And then when I think I'm there, I'm actually going to make this. So I'm switching to the move tool. I'm going to hit the number 0. That switches it to 100%. And now what I want to do is I actually want to switch this one. You can see is anchor point type object or a point type object. I'm going to switch this to a paragraph, so an area type object. So what I'm going to do is I can't have my cursor inside when it switches. So I'm going to go here and convert to paragraph text. So if I put my cursor inside, I can't convert it to paragraph text. It needs to be selected. So the easiest way to do it is to use the move tool and select it, and then you can switch to paragraph type. So a little trick there, if you're trying to switch and you can't switch, is because you have your cursor inside, and you can't have your cursor inside when you switch. So I'm going to drag this across, and here it's useful. So when you get to interaction design, you're going to start to need to really pay attention to what type sizes people are used to using. So this is where it's very useful. And what margins make sense. This is probably one of the most used apps on the internet of apps. So they have it really dialed in. This is what people are used to. So this should be your default text right here. San Francisco, this size here is 29 points. This is if you're creating a mockup, 29 points. This is your default size. If you don't, this is where you start. And then what you're going to do is you're going to see what the letting is. So noodles is a rescue. Hello, I just have to record a tutorial. I don't have a door. I'm almost done. Okay. I'm painting my door, so my office can't be quiet. Okay. I'm going to pull this down here. You can see it already did another one. And all we need is, actually, we don't need the full length anymore. We already know what the type size is. All we care about now is the spacing in between the lines. You know the second one's probably going to be Roman. This is bold, right? We're working here with bold. The next one is probably going to be the Roman. It's going to be the closest match for this type of work. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch to regular, not Roman, regular. And what I want to do now is look at the spacing in between the lines. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to see what 60 point gives me. Not quite enough. So I'm just going to hold my shift key down, change the size. And you can see here that they've added more tracking in the text copy. So I'm just going to look at this tracking and going to look and make this 25. And that's probably going to be super close. So I'm just going to check the leading. All I need now is the first letter of each line. Sometimes the second letter can be helpful. And I'm just going to tighten up this leading a little bit more. They probably have some paragraph spacing here. So I'm going to actually insert a shift return. And that'll give me a soft return, forced line break. You'll call that in design, I think. So it's a little bit tighter, but I want to leave that other one as is. I could actually add some space before, but I'm not going to do that now. I think it's close enough. Let's see, maybe just a little bit less. Fine. I'm going to add a space in front of this. Space before. So good to know that, that's what Instagram does. There's just enough. Okay, so now you can replace this with your own. I have my own I want to put in here. So I'm going to give myself a different name. I'm going to say, maybe, okay, fine. Because lado ka kaput. It's the name of a lake in Scandinavia where a very interesting science thing happened. I just heard it on. To do this interesting thing about the freezing point of water, right? Anyways, that's this kind of name, this handle that I have. I'm actually going to look at this here because and here I'm just going to put some copy in. I just have this. It's too bad I got something that doesn't make sense at all, but got here just my copy that I used for. So I want you to put copy from your research. So just 3 lines, so end it with a period. And here for your clients, what you'll be doing is you'll be putting in something intelligent in there that makes them realize that you're actually thinking beyond this project. So here, I'm going to call this knockout. I didn't get a chance to look at everybody's Photoshop files today. That was one thing I wanted to do. So future class, I'll be looking. The Doga kaput. So there's the text. I'm going to save it. And you feel free to change these other things too. But this is all that I'm going to be looking for in these mockups. So again, we did a longer profile page, change this title, change profile picture, change the description and the name, and then you added your images right here, your image. And I'm not sure what this black thing is from. Not sure where they came from. I mean, I can delete it. Easy, I have this knockout layer. I can go in and remove this. I'm suspecting that it's actually an indicator that I'm on that function. I'm on this tab here. So it's this tabbing between these. This is what I suspect it is. Take a quick look. Yes, it is. So this tabs me between these 3 different types of content. These posts, videos, I don't know what that is, and images. Save, make sure you export it as a JPEG and place it into your, so JPEG, look at the file size, high is always good enough, export. And if you find that, I have a lot more PSDs in here because I was experimenting a little bit with how to show this to you guys. But if you end up with a lot of them, it can be really useful to have one called like output. or final files, right? And that way you have another folder and you have a place where you can put your JPEGs and your PNGs. Save again, close it, and you're done. Thanks for watching, guys. And don't forget to take a copy of your discussion board. I have instructions for that in next week's class, how to take the whole copy of your discussion board, because you'll lose access to it.